what we do know from physiological studies is that the human body is biologically biased towards energy balance. It likes to achieve energy balance. So it will always work towards that, which means that if on the odd day you might consume a bit more than your body needs in that day, actually what you'll find is that the body switches on behaviors to support that. So your metabolic rate will rise a little bit more. You probably become a little bit more fidgety than you even realize. Suddenly you might have that rush of energy to do the house. Like, these are the things that you're not thinking about, but your body is helping you to maintain energy balance. And similarly, when you don't consume enough, it will go into more preservation sort of processes. And also, this is where it can become problematic if that's a chronic issue, it then starts to shut the body down. But in the day to day, like, I definitely notice if I've had a day where, like, I was in London on Tuesday for work, and I always find it really difficult when I'm working and traveling to keep on top of my intake, just because of the nature of rushing around, trying to find, and what often happens is I notice I got to Euston Station, like, it was like whatever time it was, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, can't remember now, and I was frozen. And I know that was not because it was cold outside, it was because I needed food. Like, my body was telling me that you haven't given it enough today, Renee, you need to get some food into you. And it's those little things that you start to pick up on and notice. And I think, one of the things I'm always trying to teach people is, I know there's a lot of tech out there. I get that there's a lot of tech out there, and I get that we're all becoming consumers of that tech and data, and I get that, and I know really geek out on it, and I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I think the thing to remember is the human body is designed to have its own monitoring system. It's constantly monitoring what is going on. The hypothalamus, which is obviously the boss of the brain, is constantly checking, is the temperature okay? Have I got enough carbohydrate? Have I got enough iron? Like, it's constantly working it out. It's never switching off. And so I think it's important. I'm always guided by my body. If my body is telling me it's hungry, even if I've just had a massive meal, I'm like, okay, well, I'm obviously still hungry. I'm obviously in need of it. If I'm desiring something maybe a little bit sweeter, I will question, did I eat enough carbohydrate in my last meal? Is that why I'm wanting something sugary? Because again, it's just the brain, the body trying to tell you something, like, I need glucose now, I need sugar now. So I think I'm not disagreeing with you, but I think we just have to be really mindful that it's very, very hard. And our watches that tell us we've burnt X amount of calories, that they are completely pointless and useless from that point of view. Like, they are not accurate in any form or manner. So
yeah, that's just something I spoke to about the guys I was coached the other day. I was like, you cannot trust these things. I totally agree. I'm with you, and what you've just said, actually, I'll go back and I'll let that digest a little bit more, because maybe with the practice that we run, it's like the calories are a guideline, but you're right. It's that understanding, and it's something I do teach them. So look, if you're hungry, there's a reason why you need to be mindful and really think about it, rather, because most people aren't mindful about food, they just chuck it in. But what I'm trying to do with the people that we coach is get them to be really mindful about what they've been doing over a day, over a week, with their training and with their food, and thinking, look, why am I always a bit empty on the bike? Or why am I feeling absolutely ravenous? And once they get a hang of that and their cues, and asking themselves some really good quality questions, they're going, oh, okay, I need to eat a bit more. Or maybe I need to have a bit more carbohydrate because tomorrow's really tough, or very long. And it's like, I need to make sure that that really is quality, and I don't ride my bike halfway through and think I need to get off.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point to make, because so many people are so fearful of thinking ahead. If I've got a long run, I'll be thinking about that 2 or 3 days beforehand, not just the day before. I'll be thinking about that ahead, thinking, well, Sunday's like a really big run, right? Okay, well, I really need to make sure that sort of Friday, Saturday, I'm eating well to make sure I can I can make that, I can have enough energy to deliver. And that's again something to remember, is that our glycogen stores, where we store our carbohydrate, we can store between sort of 500, 600 grams of carbohydrate in there, depending on our size. And like smaller people will be a bit less, bigger people will be a bit more. And while that sounds like a lot, it actually takes quite a long time for the carbohydrate you consume to be stored as glycogen. So it can take up to 72 hours, which is why, when you're thinking about like marathon training, or you're doing your carb loading, that's why we're talking about 4 days beforehand, because we know that if you want full stores on the day of your race, then you need to be thinking about it 3-4 days ahead of that, not the day before, because it's going to be too late. You're never going to be able to get that amount of carbohydrate. Like, not even, you might be able to consume it, but you won't be able to generate the glycogen for it. So I think that's a really important thing to remember, is that, as you were saying right at the beginning, what you eat today is not going to make a difference today or even tomorrow. Like, it's when people, potentially overconsume week after week after week, month after month, that's when the balance will start to shift. And one way to kind of think about this and reassure yourself is that if you look at people, even if you look at people who are overweight, they don't suddenly change in front of your eyes. They don't like go from one week to the next week looking any different, and yet they'll consume in a way maybe that you don't agree with, but they're still not changing in like every day. It takes time. You might notice in 2 months, 3 months time, okay, well, yeah, maybe they have changed a bit more, but that will be, again, they're not mindful and they haven't changed their behavior. So I think, if the listeners don't take anything else away except that, what you eat today is not going to affect you immediately, then that's great, because I think that's where people will then panic, because they're like, oh, if I eat all that carbs today, then I'm going to put on weight tomorrow, and then I won't be able to ride my bike, or whatever it might be. And it's like, no, that will actually help you to ride your bike better, do your run, or whatever.
That's a beautiful way of describing it, because if we can get across to people that carbs are actually a really good thing for energy creation and delivering in training, then that's a great thing. The thing realistically, which really worries me and is prevalent in the fitness space right now, are blood glucose monitors and that constant bashing of insulin and sugar. What are your thoughts on this? What have you seen, and what are you seeing, and how's that affecting people right now in your sphere?
So I have spoken openly about this a couple of times now, because I am getting really concerned. I've had a number of individuals come into clinic who have, quite frankly, become so obsessive about what they're eating as a result of these monitoring tools, should we call them, and they have developed a really dysfunctional relationship with food. And in the females that I've worked with, their periods have stopped as a result of them not consuming enough of the energy and the carbohydrate, particularly, that they need. So this is problematic on a exponential scale, as far as I'm concerned, because you've got sort of company promoting it, you've got celebrities promoting it, you've got potentially well-informed professionals promoting it, and yet when you actually talk to people in the know, so I've spoken to a number of endocrinologists, I've spoken to a number of scientists, other nutritionists, other dietitians, and everybody, we're all going, oh my God, this is going to be really problematic. So in the past, the only time you would have continuous glucose monitoring would be with somebody who was a type 1 diabetic. Okay, so type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune condition, and it's where you're born with the fact that your pancreas doesn't produce any insulin. So you can't control your blood sugar levels. So the whole point of the pancreas and insulin is that it's our internal glucose monitoring, if you want to call it that. Like we have that as our internal, and insulin and a well-working pancreas is not problematic. Like we can eat sugar, we can eat carbs, our blood sugars will go up, but the insulin will be released and they'll come back down again. The reason why insulin has become this fear is because people also associate it with absorbing glucose and then that turning into adipose and then that being problematic from a weight point of view. And again, it's not as simple as that. And I think that's where we get back down to. So, and I think the thing to remember is that in healthy individuals, and I'm talking about individuals when I say healthy, those that don't have type 1 diabetes in particular, their blood sugars will fluctuate a lot during the day. That's normal. You know, if we do my blood sugars every hour on the hour for 2 weeks, we would see huge fluctuations, and that's completely normal. That, you know, yes, our body is very good at controlling it within a certain range, but that doesn't mean it always has to be 4. That doesn't mean it can never be above 6. Like it is going to continuously, and also that it's not just food that influences our blood sugar, which again is so important to remember. So last month, a couple of months ago now, because we were getting so many people coming through our clinic, a lot of them having signed up to the Zap, and then they were basically they did their 2 weeks of continuous blood monitoring and all sorts of other weird and wonderful things, and they basically were then told that they should do intermittent fasting and they should do no carbohydrates and all these. And then again, all these women are turning up to us and we've got no period, and it's like, no, wow. Shit, Sherlock. So we decided as a team that we needed to kind of work out what was going on. And so one of my team went undercover and joined the Zoe app to see what the process was and what it involved, because we were getting really worried that, are we missing, or, you know. And she did the 2 weeks of monitoring, and she did it in a controlled way, because we're scientists. She didn't control it. She said, right, she ate exactly the same food every single day, exactly the same for 2 weeks. So if food was the only influence on our blood sugars, then that would mean that her blood sugars should be controlled. And even if they were higher than they should be, they would be the same. That's based on what is being put out there. Her blood sugars were all over the place because it's influenced by stress. It's influenced by dehydration. It's influenced by your sleep to a certain degree. It's influenced poorly. It's influenced in women by their menstrual cycle. Like, that's the thing. And none of these questions were being asked. She didn't get once asked, where are you in your menstrual cycle? Like, didn't get asked any of those questions at all. She just basically got told that her blood sugars were concerning because they were fluctuating so much, and that she needed to talk to one of the advisors about an appropriate approach for her. And when she went to one of these advisors and she challenged them, she asked them things like, well, some of these questions that she put, well, I was in the luteal phase of my menstrual cycle, what influence would that have? And they no knowledge. She talked to them about the fact that so her sleep was really poor, and that, sometimes it was very, very stressful. No information. She talked about, well, what are the normal variations that you would expect in healthy individuals? No information. So I just want to say that while I think initially the Zoe app was a Zoe study, as you'll probably all remember. It was a Zoe study in the COVID era, we can call that now, I think, where we were all encouraged to put information in every day so they could collect data for COVID to help the research around COVID and what was going on, what the symptoms were. I signed up to it because I was like, well, this is great. And it was research. So, you put your information in, you're collecting all this data. Then suddenly it became the Zoe app, and now people have to pay to be part of this process, and that you're sending all your data in. So that is questionable. For a start, is like, if it's meant to be research and data collection, why are you paying to do it? But also it's become very, very transparent that, Tim Spector, who is behind the Zoe app, this is his business now. He's got a huge amount of investment in it, and he's had to declare that because he was called out on it. Huge amount of, and now he's bringing in individuals like Stephen Bartlett and Davina McCall to market it, and they are also both investors. So just don't be fooled by it. So what they are doing is actually quite unethical because it's not supported by science. Like there are people top endocrinologists who are literally like, this is not okay. This is not science. And as with everything to do with nutrition, he's used two really influential faces to market his product. So of course, people are going to be duped by it. Really, it is something that I feel very, very strongly about and very concerned about, because it is giving false information. It's not even that the information is, just not quite scientific. It's false information, and it's potentially quite harmful. If it starts to affect female menstrual cycles or female hormonal health, that's not okay. And we don't even know for men, right? Because at least with women, we have a sign fairly early on that something's not right with our bodies. But when it comes to men, it takes a while before you can identify that your testosterone level is very, very low. It's not something that you'll not screen normally. So I think we have to be really, really careful. So with the continuous glucose monitoring, the big concern here is that we are scaremongering people and causing dysfunctional behaviors around food.
To get the full episode on this video, click here.